Oh, hi folks, hope you're well, and if you're not, get better quick. That's an order. Thanks for the kind comments, yada yada yada, and keep the thumbs ups coming, and every little helps. Yes, 35 subscribers, not bad, eh? We'll keep going, shall we? Never mind, it's not the quantity, it's the quality, isn't it? That's what my wife said anyway. Topic. Don't know about you really, but I go through periods in my life where I think, do you know what? I've had enough of this conspiracy analyst stuff. I'll just get on like the only other animals on the farm, you know. But the problem is, I've been infected with the curiosity, no bullshit gene. I know, it's awful. I've been suffering from it since I was about 14, I think. Because there reaches a time when you can conspiracy theory analyze to your heart's content and drive yourself up the wall. You can become paranoid, you can become hater of everybody, hater of the system, hater of this. You become Mr. Angry or Mrs. Angry. And you get so despondent because you realize, you think, well, this is futile, even going on in the world. Let me off, I want to get off, because it's insane. We live on this insane world, and it has to be a prison planet, a flat one, by the way. And so you go through these periods of depression, and you watch a video and you think, yeah man, he's got it or she's got it absolutely spot on, and I'm not the only idiot out there that agrees and suspects things are going on. I can smell a rat at a million paces, and it gives you a bit of a buzz, but then it's a bit like getting a pick-me-up when you get a new video of somebody who really knows their stuff and they're on your wavelength, and yeah baby, and I subscribe to lots of people that I thought were terrific, and then I realised they're a bunch of charlatans in the end. Corey Good, for example, and Wilcox, a pair of duffers if ever I saw one. Quite frankly, they are classic disinformation agents. Just an example. But there are other people out there who are continually on the money. One of them happens to be David Icke. Long in the tooth David, love him to bits. It's all very well though, David Icke, to sit there and look at your life, and his personal life leaves a lot to be desired. In some ways, if you were to believe the stories, which I don't. But the reality is, here's a guy who seems to have a massive empathy with what's happening to good people in the world, and is totally outraged by the whole affair. Of course he is. He's written several very good books, and a little repetitive, I've got to say. Talking about, I don't know, making good money out of old rope. That saying, money out of old rope, if you didn't know, comes from a, semi-Victorian way of life, when ships used to change their ropes on the ships, on the sailing ships, because they get rotted by the sea spray. So they used to cut them up, and instead of throwing them up, they used to get prisoners and those people out there who wanted to earn a penny a day, unpicking all the fibre off the ropes and sticking it in sacks. And with the old rope, those sacks were sold to companies that made things like pillows and mattresses and horse beds and these sort of things, and hospital beds, and used to stuff mattresses with the old rope from ships. Money for old rope. That's where it come from. So David does have original thoughts, and he can see things from another angle, I suppose, and puts it across accordingly. But I'm sorry to say that David is a bullhead. He won't commit whether we live on a flat plane or a planet. And until he does, the jury is still out, really, with me and him, because if he is that well researched and he's quite prepared to do research on everything you can think of, to the nth degree, apparently, well, it doesn't take a lot of research for anyone with a brain cell, as he often quotes, to work out that we live on a flat plane. Okay, not a ball. So, very suspicious about that. There are people that say David Icke is a shill. Well, I don't believe that for a moment. I think he is a genuine sort of guy, but he's 99% cooked. Maybe 95% cooked, or 80% cooked if you speak to his ex-wife. I don't know. And anyway, he's had a couple of relationships, and that's his personal life. But he now lives alone, it seems, and he has a son called Gareth and maybe a couple of sons. I don't know. Not really looked into his genetics, offspring, but yeah, he promotes his son, who's an average musician. I wouldn't say he's a great guitarist, being a guitarist myself. I would just say he doesn't sing quite on key most of the time, although his pop band is used by David on his promotions, and it irritates the crap out of me because nothing like keeping it in the family, David, even though it's second rate in my opinion, but hey ho, that's my opinion. But most of the audience I speak to who go to the David Icke shows that I've been to have said it's a little bit embarrassing that he's off key most of the time, his son, not David. Anyway, so you can listen to David Icke. He comes out with some good stuff and then he goes quiet for a while. And he seems absolutely obsessed with the Jews because he's always having a go at the Jews, and he's having veiled threats sent to him by the Anti-Semitic League. He's got to be in his bonnet about the Jews, the Jews, the Jews, the Jews, the Jews, Zionists, Zionists, Zionists. And okay, fair enough, but can we not have another topic, David? But it's all very well David sitting there saying how miserable the bloody world is and everything's going wrong with it, and this is wrong with it and that's wrong with it, oh woe is me, when I don't think he's got much to complain about, quite frankly. Not really, not when you sit and analyse David Icke's life. Bachelor, no child support agency on his back, successful author, lives in a very, very, very nice area, or part of the country called the Isle of Wight. Oh yes, very wealthy. You've got to be seriously wealthy or born into that place before you can get to live on it. Nice, David, very nice. How can you possibly have any empathy, David, with those people who live on the mainland and suffer the slings and arrows of the immigration problem that is currently beasting all of us in the United Kingdom? Oh, it's not so united though, David, because you live on the Isle of Wight, David. And you can always run off to your little hidden retreat, which is fundamentally a little island of about 30 miles circumference. Very nice, David. Keep writing your books and telling us how rough your life truly is. You've had it pretty cushy, my old son, so stop moaning. You work for the BBC, for Christ's sake. I'm saddened that the things didn't work out for you on many things, but hey-ho, shit happens. But then you find other favourites that you want to hitch a star to, if you like. And then you realise that there are certain aspects about them that let you down, and you become a bit deluded of it all. And I reached this stage in my life where I thought, Jesus, a lot of people moan about their circumstances all the time. They're just continuous bloody whingers. I'm grateful I'm drawing breath and my heart beats, quite frankly. Yes, I do whinge, but I admit that I whinge, and I'm cognizant of the fact that I can come across as a whinger. But many, many times I analyse what I actually whinge about. And do you know what? You always get this said to you. There are people always worse off than you, I'm sure there are, but there's lots of other people who are a lot more better off than me, who, in my opinion, got there by standing on everybody else's shoulders. If you want to get further in life, stand on the shoulders of giants. Well, we would all be giants if people stopped getting on our shoulders, folks. wouldn't we? A rising tide should raise all ships, not just the politicians and the royals and those on the take, even the angels on the take, the religious brigade. Even the bloody Vatican is on the take. I don't know why angels would be associated with them satanistic bastards anyway. Well, there are always corrupt angels, folks. Nothing's nothing. There's always something behind it all, isn't there? There's always an agenda. Am I becoming paranoid? You bet your left testicle I am, if you got one. Hitler wouldn't take the bet. I have to think about that one. Otherwise he'd be singing it up an octave. But I get despondent with people who tell others to stop moaning and stop bitching and stop this and that. And I become one of those people, and I thought, I've got to snap out of this. What snapped me out of it was this. I'll tell you a brief story in fear of boring you. Possibly you've heard it before, but I'll tell you again in case the Alzheimer's is kicking in. Maybe it's the interbreeding that goes on in your genetic bloodline. You can be forgiven. A few years back, my wonderful wife and I decided to, now we had the children not staying with us for the weekend. Well, we wasted time in other ways by having a dinner party around our house. And my wife has some pretty classy friends, and me too, all three of them. We invited some couples around our house, and my wife was going to be the hostess. We didn't have one of those silly little carts that were around in the 70s and 80s, the hostess trolleys, what a nonsense. But we did have a serving hatch, which was nice to pass the plates through and pass the dishes through and pass the cup of tea through at the end, or the wine, you know how it is. So we had these couples, and they were a mixed lot, mixed bag really. One was a gynecologist, yeah. He'd like to keep his hand in, apparently. The other one was an athlete, and they all brought their partners. And so I didn't really want to get interested in talking to those of them I knew. I was more interested in striking up new conversations with people I'd not spoken to before, i.e. the people they brought along with them, the victims, if you like, who didn't really know what a pleb I am on occasions. And it got to the sweet time, and we had all that and had our coffees and things, and little fingers started popping up, and they're having their tipple. And the conversation about, really, because a lot of these couples didn't know one another, about what you do for a living, love, as they say, or some words to that effect, mate. And I have a habit of asking people this, because you can pretty much assess somebody from what they do for a living. Not always, it's unfair to do that. A lot of people are batting below their average and could do well. Couldn't we all do better? Absolutely. So more to be pitied and scorned if they settled for second best, I suppose. But some people have no choice and a victim of circumstance. So my wife nudged me and said, look, she gave me the right act before they all sat down and came, and said, don't start your nonsense. And I just did the classic disarming statement. Yes, dear. Okay, dear. Yes, dear. Promise. It's the best way for survival. And sounds like I'm a battered husband on occasions. So, but she knew me and she loved me, and I knew she'd forgive me if I started my nonsense, so I did. And there was a pause, a lull, a pregnant pause really in the conversation after everything was all said and done. You wait for the moment. Seize the day, I say, and cherish the moment. And there was a lull in the conversation, and I could see I could actually feel my wife's eyes on me thinking, don't you dare. And I'm not one to listen to veiled threats anyway. I'd pay later. I knew I'd pay later. Oh yes. Anyway, well, that was another promise that didn't happen. And I sort of said to this girl, what'd you do? She said, I'm a private secretary for one of the senior managers in the bank. Oh, very, very interesting. It gets a bit tedious writing overdraft letters and rejection letters to people who are grovelling for money. Ha ha ha. And on to the next. We all had JOBs, jobs just over broke, it stands for, doesn't it? And then I hit the smart ass, and this is one of the guys I didn't particularly like, who one of the flirtatious young birds brought along, a young couple. And it was a relatively young relationship between them both, but hey-ho, my wife knew her, but my wife didn't know the athlete, who looked every way a ponce. And a ponce, yes, so in love with himself. I mean, if he saw himself in the mirror, he'd have an argument about who's better looking. He really would. This is the nature of the beast. And he sat there. Most people dressed nicely for the evening, and he had to arrive in a skin-tight sweatshirt. You know how it is, with the nipples sticking out, and and tight round the neck. He's all the veins coming up in the arteries. But yeah, he's pretty well stacked under that t-shirt. You can see, you can see his six-pack without him taking his t-shirt off. And didn't he love himself? Anyway, here he is, sat down. So what do you do for a living? Do you work in a gymnasium? I had to throw that one in just to piss him off. And he said, no, he says, I toboggan. And I was speechless for about 3 seconds. I thought I'd misheard him. I said, you what? What was that you said you do? I didn't quite catch that. A toboggan. Oh, him. Yes, my boyfriend. He's on the Olympic team, or trying to get to be the selected on the Olympic team. What she meant for the British tobogganing thing. I said, oh, how nice. I said, you work there? He says, well, that's my job. I'm training to be an athlete, British Olympic athlete. I thought, well, yeah, but what do you do for a job? That's my job. I said, you get paid for it? He says, yes. Every member of the team gets paid. So where do you get the money from? Where do they get the money from? Funds. Government funding. Oh. And where did the government get the money from then? Taxes. Oh. And where do the taxes come from then, David? And there was a chill, and my wife was nudging me and nipping me on the leg and kicking my ankle, saying, don't start. You seem ventriloquist, try to talk without moving her lips. Yes. I thought, I've blown it for tonight. I was on a promise. Promised to shut my mouth. Anyway, I couldn't contain myself. I said, so what you're saying is every member of this table who work and pay taxes is paying your wages? And he went absolutely beetroot, this puff. That's athlete. Oh, yes. I said, have you ever done any other job? Oh, no, I've been obsessed with getting on the Olympic team since I was 15. He can't have been more than 19, bless him. But I then said to him, I can't believe how selfish it is, the job you do. How does it benefit mankind? What you do? Got a gynecologist, a secretary that does letters for the bank, you got myself, we all contribute to society. But what do you contribute to society? Well, if I can get... what you're saying... I'll stop you there, David. Just because you make the toboggan go faster on the ice than anyone else, what does it do for me lately? It'd be all right for your ego, but what does it do? What does it contribute to society? What you do, your parents must be super... they are. So, but what does it do for you? That you are now very fast in your toboggan. I thought it's such a selfish thing to do with your life, is to spend time self-obsessed occupation that you do. And it's the same, isn't it, with all athletes. Needless to say, the conversation went nowhere, and we were on to the next one, and he was sat there giving me daggers. And but this is my point. We all had productive jobs. We all paid our taxes. We all had to earn a living by doing jobs we didn't particularly want to do, which 85% of the population do, because they have to, because they have responsibilities and they have self-respect instead of being self-obsessed. And here he is, tobogganing, for Christ's sake. And to top it all, defensive about it. And there's no defence about being a selfish bastard, being self-obsessed. And it's the same with people who are obsessed with playing tennis. On the circuit, yes, they're bloody good tennis players. They're absolutely wonderful. But, I'm sorry, but what does it do for me in society? The fact is that he can whack a tennis ball backward and forward almost as good as a loser, and sit there holding a cup, having earned £36 million this year, because he can bat a bloody ball from one side of the court to another. What has it done for humanity lately? Nada. You name it. You tell me one sport. The only thing it does for the people who play this sports is to keep them fit and keep them occupied and keep them out the bloody way. Because they're fit for fuck all else, quite frankly. You only have to look at the retards that become multi-millionaires, but it really pisses me off that they are so self-aggrandizing, self-important. When you say, what have you done for your fellow people in society? Answer that. I entertain them. Well, ain't that about it? They're showmen, they're entertainers. Why don't they just say it? Because that's all they ever are. How many children hanker after being an entertainer? Oh, professional sports person, I might add. Or do we call them athletes? What about self-indulgent egomaniacs with a self-serving agenda? That's about sums it up. And yet we do allow this to happen. 365 days a year, don't we? 24 hours a day. It's in our faces, having it thrust upon us, that while most of the population are having to work and earn a living, these bastards are enjoying themselves, kicking a bag of air around, knocking a volleyball about, a funny shaped ball called rugby, and a round ball called football or tennis. And this is why I don't like sports. Because I don't think sports, apart from keeping fit, and we should all keep fit, apart from keeping the indulgers, those self-indulgent ones, fit and very wealthy, we're the mugs who make them wealthy. And they're ingrates. That's the problem with athletes. They put themselves on a pedestal, and it is us who put them there. Yes, they have the abilities, but if you did something obsessively since you were 12 or 6, and now you're a professional footballer because you did nothing but play football, but you can't add 1 and 1 makes 4, you could be a success, my son. Sports has done more harm than good for society that has to put up with it. And unfortunately, many countries are football obsessed, aren't they? Absolutely football obsessed. They buy the newspaper, they're on oh, look who's won. It's on the TV constantly. It's the weekend retreat for all the pissheads, the armchair sporters, the armchair supporters. Eh? Oh yeah, they've got all the gear on. They've got the kit, just like the bloody tobogganist. They've got all the gear, folks, okay? Yeah, the kids can't fart without causing offence to Dad who's watching the match, because his team are playing, his bloody team. Yeah, and Dad's dressed up like a team player. At least he can dream. And yet he's sitting there waiting for his next coronary bypass, having his fifth beer, telling the kids to shut the bloody hell up because he's watching the match. Don't disturb your father. And he gets violent with his attitude, especially if the team are losing. And the kids haven't got decent shoes to wear to school. They can't afford the new school clothes. They have to have hand-me-downs. No, he's not going on the summer trip this autumn with his summer trip skiing with his mates to the south of France. He ain't going because he can't afford it, but because Daddy can have his T-shirt. Oh yeah, his colours, and he can buy his season tickets, £680 a year. That's conservative, because Daddy's got to go and watch these plebs who are depriving his children of having his school clothes. It's an utter disgrace, and I am so anti-sport. I have no problem with somebody playing sport in their own time for recreation, keeping fit, and just because they like the game. I used to play squash incessantly, all the time, obsessed. I was very, 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 very good in the Air Force. I was in the championships in the Air Force. I won the championships in the Air Force once, got a medal. Good boy. I worked hard for that. I was a really good squash player, but it's a young man's game. Okay. I had more blisters to prove it, I can tell you. But it's a time to hang up the squash racket and realise I ain't got it in me anymore. But I don't have to go and buy all the colours to my hero worship, one who can play squash at a world level. No, I was just happy being a services all-rounder best. For a very brief moment in time, every dog has its second. And but I achieved something great, magnificent, just for me. But in the meantime, in my real world, I had to go to work. So you can do both. But no, not with Davids of the world, the self-obsessed. The ones that contribute very, very little to society. And this is my big thing. And I really hate and despise and resent the sheer amount of airtime on terrestrial television, when I used to watch it, dedicated to sport, 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 sport. I go down the shops, there's Billy and Bunty, mum and dad surrounded by 4 kids with dripping down their nose. They look like they've got 2 pennies to rub together, but got their home and away kits for Man U stuck on their backs on a Saturday walking down the Palisades. When the kids can't go on trips, they can't afford the bloody clothes, they can barely afford to put food on the table, but they've all got the 2 summer and 2 home and away kits for both times, haven't they? I just find it a disgrace that these bloody footballers and professional athletes get overpaid to such an extreme. Because, do you know, here's the reality. If you said to any professional footballer out there right now that play for Man United, okay, we're dropping your salary, all of you are getting £50,000 a year, base. That is it. And if you don't like it, piss off. And you did that to every imposed from FIFA, that top rate of pay. And you standardise it for all players. That's it. The national wage for a professional footballer starts and finishes at £50,000 a year. End of. How many would quit the game? A very small percentage. And those that do quit the game when you hit them with this bad news can afford to leave. Well, they won't be back. But then you can revamp and staff that football field with people who are playing football, who are passionate about the game and have equal abilities to all those alleged professionals that have just limped off following their bank manager and wondering how they're going to pay the mortgage with the 15 cars and the 6 kids at boarding school. And yet, they wouldn't leave the job, because what else would these people do? Well, they could piss off and retire on the money, couldn't they? On the money they've got. And the real players who are passionate about the game will play the game 24/7 at $50,000 a year. And then the entrance fee to get in to watch these people kick a bag of air around from one side to another could be £1 or £2, and make it fair, because football has become a very elitist sport. It's extremely expensive to get in and watch such a thing. And a lot of people would love to go to football matches and get the season tickets and support their teams. But the whole thing about football and other sports, of course, is that, take for example Stoke City. Oh, Stoke City, dear to my heart. I don't support football. My father was born in Stoke-on-Trent. There you go. Stoke City. How many players who play for Stoke City were born, bred and buttered in Stoke City? How many players that play for Man U were born in Manchester? Do you see what a nonsense it all is? That was the whole point, wasn't it? Inter-town, inter-city rivalry. Our boys from Liverpool can play better than the boys in Sheffield. But the boys who play for bloody, I should say girls nowadays as well, the girls and boys who play football for their hometowns don't live in those hometowns, weren't born in the hometowns, and didn't come from, no affiliation with the hometowns. Why don't they just call them like the Yanks do then? The Stafford Tigers. You know, the Walsall Wanderers. The Leeds Immigrants. It's as arbitrary as anything else. I mean, half the football pitches have got more black people than white people, to be quite frank. And I think that football lost its charm, if ever it had any. It lost its last vestiges of charm when they started to buy players from overseas. It became a nonsense. And yet I'm surrounded by such idiots who like football. It's a bit, you know, what do you do for your hobby? Oh, Dave, yeah, he loves his football. Don't you, Dave? Yeah. That's it. Forget it. Don't want to know. I'm sorry about this. It's so anti-sport. You can't believe it. I am so anti-sport. I just assess people very quickly. You do. You tend to assess them in about 5 seconds flat, especially if you've got a football shirt on. That's it. Done it. Forget it. You couldn't pay me enough to put some football shirt on for a start. Not really. It doesn't matter what football shirt is supporting what. I don't want to appear that, hey, look, I'm a moron too. I pay for these idiots out there getting £500,000 a week because my family suffer because I buy 4 of these a year, 2 summer, 2 away home, 2 home and aways and whatever, and buy a season ticket. And I stop the kids having an annual holiday because I insist. I'm a working man. I am. I mean, one of my pleasures is beer and football, isn't it, darling? Duh. Well, she married him. To make matters worse now, women's football's coming on big time as well. So, in conclusion, you can think, can't you, that you go through phases of realising that the world is full of selfish, self-obsessed people with an ego, and those that take and those that contribute. And professional sports people are the world's greatest takers, because they contribute, in my opinion, sweet FA to society. All of their careers end in failure because they become too old to bloody work after 40. What do they do then? Oh, nice little job in the BBC, Lineker and co. Yes, the tax avoider, Lineker, that he is. Well, you can, pick a sport. Pick a sport, and it's full of these self-obsessed individuals like David. I rest my case on that one, Your Honour. But you get so angry with this, but people don't see it. So I have a choice. I can either shut up or put up. I can listen to David Icke talking about the problems he has with the Jews, and the Zionists. Yeah, I get it. Been there, done it. And I get self-obsessed with the football fanatics and the sports fanatics. I haven't got a moment in my day for such people. And I find them repellent to be around, because all they want to talk about who's playing who and who's doing who and footballers' wives and yada yada yada. You know, and I have to go to work on occasions having to deal with very sick people. Historically, and see, like, real life isn't all about what I can get out of it. It's what I can do for other people to help them have a better life. And I would do that for somebody whether I got paid for it or not. And that's called being human and a humanitarian. I ain't a racist. I say that quite seriously. If I saw a little Muslim child outside my house falling over and hurting itself, trust me, I'd pick it up and say there and make sure it's okay and maybe put a bandage on it and look for the parents. I'd be sport for choice looking for 4 women, trying to figure out which one was mummy. But you get my point. I'm not a racist in that respect. I'm a racialist. I look at statistics and the way it's going to go, and it's not looking good for the white honkies. Asking old pal, he forecasted that one. But I think all things are moderation, really, and I do think David the tobogganist should look in the mirror and do some reflection. You know, what does he truly going to achieve with his life? Because you're going to be judged, folks, when we check out. I'm sure we go for a life review. And the old judge at the pearly gates will be going, okay, David, let's check it out. Okay, obsessed with sledging as a child. Right, yeah. Yeah, all your girlfriends were obsessed with sledging. Then you went through a period of liking little boys and children and playing around in the snow and playing about. Did you ever get a job? No. Okay, so he's flicking through the life review. Oh, look, yes, you did very well. You managed to wheedle your way into a tobogganing club. And, oh, that's very nice. Did you do any work while I'm looking? Did you do any proper work, David? No. What did you do for society then, apart from indulging or obsession about being a speedy person on a sledge? Anything else you did? Not really. I went, I saw, I spun around on some ice and I conquered and I got my best time ever. Okay, very good. Another thing that was in it for you. What about was in it for your fellow humans? What did you do for society then, David? Nada. You're going down, my old son, because you obviously haven't learnt. It's all about sharing and loving one another. Not becoming self-indulgent and self-obsessed, you egocentric dicks. And until we learn that, we'll be coming back. I can't wait, though, because all the arseholes that I dislike on this world, the self-obsessed, they'll be coming back. Ho, ho, ho. One thing I have learned, looking and watching and listening to the conspiracy theories out there, or analysing the conspiracies, because there are no theories, folks, there's more conspiracies to work on than you can shake a stick at, is ultimately, in this world, there are givers and lovers and takers and haters. That's it. But there is a hidden hand that are playing this silly puppeteer game. And sad to think that they are the Satanists, and down here we're the little puppets, and they're the puppeteers. It's all very simple. But stack the odds in your favour and start wondering yourself if you're actually contributing enough to society in your own sweet way. Not taking and using and abusing and expecting. Because I'm surrounded by people who expect things from me all the time. Taxman. Takers out there who want favours but don't ever give any back. They want to borrow my tools and my lawnmower and they don't bring it back after searching. The world is full of these. And personally speaking, I've had my fill. I haven't become antisocial. I give you my word, I'm not antisocial. I wouldn't be doing these videos if I was antisocial. I just sat in my little box looking for a new job as a tobogganist. Or maybe I could be a footballer. Yeah, I'm too old now, that's my excuse. But I never had a passion for wanting to do it. Why would I want to do such things? I get bored. I get bored very, very easily. It's like education, you know. Oh, you're well capable of getting an A star, David. George, Bob, whatever your name is. Why didn't you get an A star? Well, I was perfectly happy achieving a C. Pass is a pass is a pass. Isn't it? A horse wins by a nose, as big as it is. That's true, isn't it? It doesn't have to be a full horse or a full length of the head, does it? It just has to win a race by a nose, and if passing that A level at that grade gets me into uni, I've passed. It doesn't matter whether you pass big time or standard time or little time, does it? I've passed. A pass is a pass is a pass. But people are grade obsessed. Did you get a 2-2 or a 1-2? Dunno. Didn't look. You know, I didn't get a first. Oh, you failure. Well, is that how you judge failures in life? Whether they got a first at Cambridge or not? Something wrong. You're suffering from stinking thinking if that's the way you think. The same as that David, the tobogganist, suffers from stinking, self-obsessed thinking. So have a think. Be careful who you invite to dinner. That's number one. Well, funnily enough, after this meeting, when they all dissipated and the row settled down at home and I was left alone with her indoors, she forgave me, of course. Of course she would. She knows what side of bloody bread's buttered. And yes, it took a week for her to start speaking. We soon got over that little tryst, whatever they call them nowadays. We're still together after all this time. I'd be out if I'd murdered someone by now. But I'm still in. I think she loves me. Well, you better ask her. I daren't. She's still sulking at me for something. There's always sulking for something. I can never quite understand why they sulk. Well, it used to work on Daddy. That's why they seem to think it works on me, and it's not going to work. I've never been a tolerator of sulking. Let's have a talk now and get it over with. I could do without the week of silence, but sometimes I enjoy the silence. Oh yes, gives me thinking time, you see. I'm not going to be disturbed, I know that for certain. The only downside is I have to make my own cup of tea. I've got this big cup now, I make a big one in case it's a long sulk. But I hope you see my point, folks. We can all moan about the state of the world and that, and then we look at the minutiae of detail, but it is still a beautiful, wonderful, wonderful world we live upon, the flat one. And there's so much, how very dare we say that we are ever bored. We should never, never, never be bored. There is so much to learn and understand and grasp. I force myself to read a book I have no interest in reading. But you know what, often I like the book and I wish I'd read it before. So sometimes a random selection, as long as I'm not getting Doris Stokes talking to dead people again on the bookshelf. Sick of listening to Doris. I haven't heard from her lately. I think she's dead. She doesn't speak to live people, does she? I haven't heard her. No, I'm just grateful I haven't picked up a copy of the Quran as a random thing. I just couldn't bear to read backwards. Never mind. Backwards books written for backward people. That would be quite a good title, wouldn't it, really? I'll love you and leave you on that note. Before I get hate mail. And try not to have people you cannot abide around for dinner. Otherwise, it could cause a bit of a silence in your household, especially if you ask them what they do for a living. You see, you've got the bug now. You're going to be isolating and picking on people who are sports people, fanatics, who maybe weekend footballers, weekend canoeists, weekend footballers. Oh yeah, baby. I'm surrounded by them. And I just have to smile at looking at 35, 40-year-old blokes who look like they're this side of a coronary on a cold Sunday morning, running around like an idiot, pretending in their mind that they're professional footballers. But during the week, he sat there reading the paper because he's on benefits. Or he's in some menial bloody job he has to do because he's having to pay his court fines. At the weekend, though, Walter Mitty's out there playing football, just wishing, that he was on £300,000 a week. Dream on, sunshine, and we can all dream, can't we? Catch you tomorrow. Take care.